Hello everybody, today's first job back on the Ferguson T20 hydraulic rebuild is to build up these fork humps here. These are, see if I can show you, basically where the piston pushes against. So you can see there, they line up with the piston. So when the piston reaches the maximum lift position, it pushes this out, which then puts the control valve into the neutral position so that it stops the lift. But as we can see, they are quite worn and quite thin, so we're going to build them up today. So to do that, we are going to be changing the 1mm wire on the MIG for 0.8. Very much a pain for building these up. I am really tempted just to blast it with 1mm and see if we can get it to work. We probably can, to be fair, and then we will clean them back down to size and give them a little tickle, etc. Then that'll be that done. There's not a lot of wear in the rest of it, so the rest of it's good to go. We've got all the bits now, obviously not these, to do the rebuild. They all arrived this week. A word of warning for anyone that has the draft spring where it fits on this fork here. If it's seized or really stiff, whatever you apply in whatever twist and effect you apply to it will actually try and twist this fork inside the housing and the lift cylinder. So if your spring's tight, best thing to do is take it off and do it properly, because you bend that fork, I don't know anyone that makes new ones, you'd have to try straighten it or get a second hand one. And this relief valve, the unloading valve, I can't find one the same, so I'm guessing that the later ones are the modified ones where they have the ball in them. So I've got the later one for that, and we can use that to make a tool to get the housing out of the top cover, and that's the plan. And it's blowing a gale, you probably can't hear it because of the wind, but we're gonna sort this control fork out first, and then what we're going to do is do some measuring and some tests on the lift cylinder, because I know the new one potentially might hit the front of the casing and make it hard or impossible to get the bolts in. So we're going to do a check of that before we do any proper fitting, in case we've got to take a bit of the front of the casing off to let the lift cylinder go in. The lift cylinders, the new ones, don't have this bit here. Well, they do, but it's not drilled the same for the spring, so it puts the spring in a different position because they come off the Ford N series. Even though they're advertised that they do fit the T20, you do have to modify them to fit the T20. So that is what we plan to do today. And then yeah, we've got new Scotch choke pistons, got new brass bushes, bronze bushes. We're going to use the original cam because that's okay. Got new PRV to go in there. We've got a new control valve to go on that fork. New lift chambers, new valves for the lift chambers. And then that's ready to go back together, I think. We need to clean the gasket off as well and do the same on the bottom of the gearbox. Need to flush the gearbox out because we've already done the back end so far, so we've still got to do the gearbox. And then we can get ready for the top cover assembly, but we can't do that until the new piston arrives. Now taking this 1mm 15 kilo original, what originally was a 15 kilo, so 1mm wire diameter, a lot of inertia to get going in the MIG. So what we've done is we've swapped that out for some 0.8 on a 5 kilo spool. So a lot less inertia for the welder to get going. Just need to sort out the amount of overrun. We've changed the wheel now, so we've taken out the 1mm 1.2, put a 0.8 and a 1mm wheel in. And then we just need to get our settings right. So if I remember, wire speed usually around here somewhere. Don't need that many amps, so we drop down to there. I think wire speed will be about around there, which will probably be good for what we want on this fork. Got a control fork built back up here in here now. If it's worth filling the back edge in or not, but the good thing is if you don't fill the back edge in, you got the contour of what you can actually build it back up to. so you can follow the contour and make sure you're kind of like in the right ballpark. So next thing to do now is we need to have a look on the list, but I think the next job is to make sure the hydraulic cylinder fits in the top cover and all the bolts go back in. So I think we'll do that next, because that's going to be another job that will require more cleaning. So done the control fork, measured the O-rings. Job I'm going to do is measure the hydraulic cylinder bores and the ring gap. That needs to do, so we're going to do this now. Test fit top cylinder to the cover and install. Just put the hydraulic lift cylinder on, and my rear two bolts go in. But the front don't. So first thing we need to do is drill these holes out so that they accept these bolts, and then we'll probably have to nick a bit off the side of the cylinder here so that the bolt can go in, or we'll have to take a bit off the side of the bolt. But like I said previously, it's for the N series Ford, even though they advertise it for the T20, but I think it fits the early model T20s, not the later ones, without modification. And then we need to take a bit off of here, but to get around that, what we can do is drill down here, and then that'll let us get the spring back in here, so we have the correct tension then going onto the fork. But I might just get the grinder and just whiz that off, just so the spring goes in nice and easy, because it's only down to there and we're not losing any structural integrity. Now I've got the hydraulic cylinder on the bed of the milling machine. You can use a pillar drill, whatever you want, but I've got this, so I may as well use it. Basically 7.5mm or 7/16, just to line it up. We'll swap that out now for the 12.5mm or 13mm, whatever you got, or 1/2 inch, and we run it down, move it across, and then we'll do the same in this hole, and then see how much or what we need to do to make the bolts fit. Got it on risers so we don't go through the bed, and yeah, basically hopefully that'll be it. I don't think it matters where you get your hydraulic cylinder from. This one was from Agriline with all the other bits that I've got. Some parts were from the old 20 parts company because they were cheaper than Agriline for some stuff. They had stuff that Agriline didn't have. A few things I'm not impressed with. I'll show you them as and when we come to them, but yeah, done that one. I'll move it across now and we'll do this one. I know some people will comment I haven't got this supported, but it's taking 1/2mm off the radius, so 1mm off the diameter. It doesn't need it. We'll do a quick fit of the bolts, and hopefully they've got these hole centres correct. Otherwise we'll have to put a bigger drill in and try and go one way or the other to get it to line up. Let's have a look, eh? So as you can now see, the bolt hits on there, and same that side. So we need to run the end mill now down there so we can get the bolt in. I know people are going to say, why don't I take a bit off the head of the bolt instead of machining down the casting? Two answers for that. Firstly, I can machine the casting and the bolts fitted in the original. I'm not concerned about any structural integrity because I tried the original piston in here and it doesn't fit. It's too big for this cylinder, so that means the bore on this has been machined out of tolerance and it's too small for the T20 original piston. Now I'm going to be using the later type, what you'd now class as a conventional hydraulic piston with a rubber seal on it and a backup washer. That's what the Ford N uses, and that stops some of the leakage in the system, so I'm going for that. So I can't do anything with the bore of this until I get my new piston to see whether the new piston actually does fit this bore. But if you're going to use an original piston with the piston rings out of the original hydraulic cylinder, my one doesn't fit in here. So that means that there's more material here than on the original, which means I'm going to machine it off. And then while I've got the end mill in, I'm going to machine across there too, because that is a through hole. So I've squared it up using the bolts in here, pushed it against the bed, against the slides for the T-slot nuts. So I know that's parallel going that way, so it should be square going this way. I'm just going to go for it and take, like, literally get it to touch off here and run it across, because I know the bolt head kind of goes in where the lip is, so I just need to take that lip off, and that's what I'm going to do. Machine this down now so the spring fits on here to put the correct pressure on the control fork. Machine this now so the bolts fit in there. Got the same sort of gap as what that one's got. I took an extra 0.5 mil off, so what I did, I touched off on this edge, and then took it back to the actual main barrel casting, and then took an extra 0.5 mil off of that. So the bolts fit now, which is pretty much the same as what the original was, and we come in at 83.9798 there roughly. So we'll compare that now to the original, and the original comes in at 84.7, so I took the extra 0.5 mil off, which I didn't have to do really then. In that case they would have fitted. So I'm 0.7 mil narrower there, which isn't a problem. So what I would say, if anyone else is doing it, bearing in mind these are only a casting, so they are rough, is if you just touch off against the casting above the casting mark here where they originally machine it, go down to this height, got to take your end mill across on both sides, and your bolt should fit, and you should be somewhere near the original thickness. So that's that bit done. We can now put it in the top cover and see if it fits the tractor. So if we can see on the original, we've got a nice curve on the end here, which the new one, it doesn't have that, it's square across. And if we look here, it actually sits in front of like the curve of the casting, and if we look straight down we can see that this side and this side are actually going to be where the gasket mark was. So what I'm going to do is just loosely bolt this on and push it that way, and then we'll drop this on the tractor and see if the bolts go in to bolt the top housing onto the tractor. Managed to get these back 2 bolts in. Don't know how well you can see on camera, but there is no way in this world that the front bolts are going to line up, and what I can do is push the cover that way and pull it back this way a little bit, but it's hitting on the piston on this side at the front. So we'll take the cover off. We'll measure from the gearbox hole to the back of the casting, from the gearbox hole to the back of the casting, make sure they're equal. We can take a little bit out of there if we need to, but what we're going to have to do more than anything is take a bit off the front of the hydraulic cylinder. So we'll lift it back off with the engine crane, and we'll do that next. Just have the burner inside, and it's 171.5 mil to the inside down in there. So I'm going to measure what the overall is, and that'll tell me how much thickness there is of material at the base here, and if I can afford to take any off of here really, or whether I've got to take a bit out of the casing. So we're 185.34 mil overall, it's a rough casting, and what we'll do is we'll do the same on that one and see how much material is on that to know how much we can take off of the other. Not sure how well you can see that, but the original cylinder comes in at 173.71 mil inside, and if we just lay it down and measure it again on the overall on the outside, for you. And the overall from there to there is 192. If it can pick that up or not, it's 192.76 there, and the edge where it is catching is 189.5. So, in theory, I can put that on there, and it shouldn't catch. So what that tells me is the distance for them holes is different. Quite different. Probably like 32-ish there. I don't know what that would be, but yeah, it's, very different. But I think what it is, because the piston under here is where it hits on, is where it goes on. Oh, Lisa, spring on there, yes. That's the bit that goes on the casting. So the bit under here actually clears. And because this doesn't have the recess underneath, it won't clear. So what I want to know is literally what thickness. There you got that one. So that there's 182.15. So if we zero that there, origin, and then we measure down on the inside. That tells me there's a thickness of 8.4 mil. So I can do the same on this, and that has a thickness of 14.29 mil. So there's a load of material on here that we can take off to get the shape right. So I'm going to do that, because that is clearly a mile away from where it should be. Absolute mile. And it's this side. I mean, you look down, you can see that's got a hump in it there. It's not even like flattened off or nothing. So I think the middle will probably be okay, but we can get the grinder and take some off of this side. But we'll take the cylinders off to do that, so we don't fill all the casing up with dust. I've marked this now, the depth of the casing on the gearbox. So this thickness here, there's a bit of a recess there, so realistically it only needs to be like 15 mil, not 19, but I've got 19, so I've got a bit of clearance. And all we need to do now is just literally take a bit off of this side, a bit off of that side, and a little smidge off the middle. So I'm going to take probably 3 mil off of this edge. So I'm going to measure that by, I've put my vernier on there, and then reset it to 0, and then I can keep measuring, and once I've got 3 mil off, I can just like profile it around a bit, and yeah, give it another try. Taking my 3 mil off the cylinder, I'll show you that in a minute. But what I'm going to do is just whip all the bolts down quickly. Ooh, we'll set that to number 1, so we don't go mad. Yeah, just make sure they all nip down, sitting level, not catching on anything. Like I say, all these now I've started by hand. Running in nice and easy. We'll chase all these threads out afterwards with the tension die as well. And I have no idea what's going on here, but that nut doesn't, like, the bolt's not long enough for that nut. That nut, it's like only half of the thread. The first part of the thread doesn't grip, so I know it's not going to be original. I've got two options. I can either get a 7/16 UNF nut, drill it and tap it out to 1/2 inch UNF, so it's still 11/16 on the outside, which is what these are, which I think is probably what I'll do, because I think I've got one of them on the shelf, or two of them on the shelf, so I can at least do one, but I'm not sure if they're the same thickness, so that's the only thing. But yeah, looking at it, it looks like it's sitting down pretty nice, so I'll just get a torch and have a look. So probably the easiest thing to do is actually shine a torch inside and see if we can see any light coming through anywhere. Looking alright to me, sitting pretty flush and level there. Quick check at the other side. Now for some reason I've got a bit of a snotty nose, so yeah, once again put a light in. You can see up in there, you can see, hopefully you can see the torch shining through. It's not the best, but you know, from what I can see, it's sitting down pretty flush and good. So once the gasket's on, that'll be just as easy. Yeah, we'll take it off. I'll show you what I've done to the cylinder. You can see now that the casting, where it overhangs here, and what I've done is I've radiused the bottom edge of it, which don't need to do all of it because there's no benefit at all from doing up here. You only need to do down here where the casting, you know, the gearbox casting makes this surface and comes back into here. So we've done that now, all the bolts fit on, no marks on here where it's been hit. Oh yeah, there is, there's a witness mark there and a little bit there. So we'll give that a little bit more of a clean off of there where the witness marks are, and then we know that's going to fit. Got a radius in here as well so that the spring goes in and there's no like damage of it cracking, so that's fine. Then once the new piston arrives for that, I'll just show you that this is the original piston that's come out of it, and it's like, that's too tight, that needs honing out a bit more to take the original piston. So it will be really interesting to see what the new piston is like for that. And you can tell this is for the O-ring type because it's got the lead in on the front of the cylinder, whereas the original is just a square edge. So with this one you'd need piston ring compressor, clamp around there, clamp your piston rings in, square edge, hit it straight in, the same as you would do as if you were doing a proper internal combustion engine or anything like that. O-ring type, got a nice chamfer lead in on it, just to help it go in, a little bit of grease or assembly lube or whatever you want on there, pop it in, drop the good one. So we'll take this off, clean up where the witness marks are on here, and then we should be ready to put the new nuts on. Then get the piston, put the piston in, waiting for the draft control linkage bits on here to come back from zinc plating, because they come from the factory and Agriline is bare metal. I'm not happy with that, I want to zinc plate it. So once that comes back, we can put that in, put the control fork on that slides through here, and then we can put the cylinder on with the O-ring in place afterwards. Easy peasy. So when people say, and this is what really annoys me with people, it just, I correct them, it just wants more skill, more knowledge, more ability and more time than you have, because it doesn't just want anything. Maybe if it's a brand new genuine part, but when you're dealing with aftermarket parts, it doesn't just want anything except more skill, more ability, more knowledge and more time, and a lot more money to pay for that time, that skill and that ability. So if anyone's got any questions on this, please feel free to put it in the comments. If you do want to see a really good video, not now people, not now, but at the end of this video I will tell you where you can go and see a really good video which explains all this. And the chap's really quite knowledgeable, to be fair to him. Really quite knowledgeable. So, yeah, one thing I'm going to check is that there isn't blocking off the return for the unloading valve. It shouldn't do, because that is actually smaller than that. I don't think there's anywhere in here. No, it's fine. So, ooh, you keep me rolling, you keep me rolling. Ooh, bits of bronzy bushy. Ooh, that's never good. That's never good. What can we do next? Next we can, I guess, we'll drill and tap all these holes out. Now we can wash everything through. We need to flush the gearbox out, so we'll use a suitable liquid for that. Be suitable, because it'd be cheap. And then, yeah, once that's done, we can put the pump together, and then that can go back in the box and be wrapped up in cling film to keep that clean. We need to take the gasket off underneath first as well, and on the pump. But yeah, got loads to get on with, so yeah, let's go.